As humans, there's a burning question we're always asking ourselves. How did we get to where we are today with our technology? Were there beings in ancient history who helped humans civilize themselves? Were they extraterrestrials that shows like ancient aliens assert, or were they instead extra-dimensional beings from other dimensions? How do the records of these beings in history corroborate their existence, and where can we find them? Today, we're going to discuss a specific anomaly found in the Southeast Asia area of our world that stretches as far back as recorded history. The Nagas. These serpent-like beings, half human, half serpent, can be found in and on temples all over India, Sri Lanka, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and more. Join me, investigative researcher Rob Counts, and remote viewer John Pavanko for a show that's going to be out of this world. I'm looking forward to this one. It kind of gets into the nitty gritty here on a very strange race of, I don't know what. There's a lot of confusion around these beings. Some people think they are snake-like. You hear snakes being mentioned in India. There's been snake-like cults all around the world, which have been worshipped for different reasons. And then you have people being like, hey, or saying that this race, this Naga race, is not snake-like at all. It's a serpent-like being that just is a different species. Why are we bringing this up? Well, it's a very strange phenomena that in all of these temples, I'm talking about a massive part of the world here, all of Asia, in fact, where we have recorded history of things that are called Nagas, and almost every single one of those cultures, they are actually called something very similar. What are these things? Are they, They look like humanoids. People say they're shapeshifters, which would then allude to this like David Icke type of reptilian being that shapeshifts potentially, or was it something else?
I don't even know. I don't even know where I would begin with something like this. So I think really you just need to start talking about some of the stuff that we've dug up here, because like what we're going to talk about is going to go back to this sort of like collision between mythology in ancient text and reality. And that's where it literally all begins, in the collision between those two. And what we interpret today as mythology isn't necessarily a myth.
Which I think can be said for, as you and I have, done over 100 podcasts on this show, we've discovered that most of the things that get recorded in ancient history are more likely to be accurate than they are to be myth.
All throughout ancient cultures, it's like there are these references to gods. You get to the Greek culture, you get to Nordic cultures, you get to any culture that references to gods and all of these other types of deities and things, right? And as we go what seems to be forward in time, those things go away, right? They go away. But yet when you go back to those texts, they get so descriptive. They're a little too descriptive. We stopped doing that at a certain point in time, and it probably occurred in every culture throughout history.
Well, and I think as cultures deteriorate too, these weird cobra worship, snake worship cults have really confused a lot of these things as well. People don't really understand this, but if you go down the possession rabbit hole deep enough and you really look at cross-cultural examples of possession, what's really going on, you find animal spirits behind a lot of this stuff. Foxes, ghosts, weasels, snakes, like different things are getting into and controlling humans. And then you have, people like Jesus appearing, being like, hey, don't do that. And we're going to be going through this in this episode, but you've got even in Far Eastern cultures, you have examples of, I guess you would call them cryptids that just don't exist in the West, like dragons at the bottom of some of these lakes And when we say dragons, we're not talking about Western dragons. We're talking about something wholly different that only exists really in the Asian culture. And, some of the details on these Nagas are really interesting. We're going to go through some of those right now for those of you at home. These are not snakes. They're not humans. They look like humanoids, but could shapeshift. We mentioned that earlier. Reports are that these things never really lived on the surface of the earth. They were always living underground or underwater. These are commonly believed to center around Southeast Asia, where the culture and memory of them is strong. But versions of this thing have been found as far as Peru. Some link the Serpent Mound in Ohio as an example of this. Mayan culture had a lot of examples of weird snake-like things.
Look at Quetzalcoatl. The culture that produced the snake mound most likely was related to all of that, right? Was related, and the culture moved downward. So possibly.
Praveen Mohan is a pretty good resource on this for you guys at home if you want to look into this a little bit more. He was on one interview I watched with him. He was saying that Israeli culture also has a version of this, and it's there in that culture. It's called the Nakash. Examples of serpents in the Bible, which may or may not be related. Was it a snake? Was it something else?
You got the seraphim, right? Which translates as fiery flying serpent.
The seraphim, yep. And we have this idea that spans across these cultures that these Naga, the Naga race, the Nagas and the Naginis, that's the woman form, they were very knowledgeable and passed down information to human beings. The Cambodia, for instance, it is known locally that the first rulers were Nagas, the first kings, the first, whatever you want to say. There are temples, Hindu temples in Cambodia, and it is said that there, the first queen of Cambodia was named Soma, and this woman descended from the Nagas and married a human. And right. Nagas, I mean, we're talking about Nagas being in every temple in this area, regardless of God, regardless of, whomever these people are worshiping, Vishnu, whoever. You've got Nagas in these temples.
A lot of the ancient cultures, when they reference the dragon, there's a link to the dragon bringing agriculture and technology. So again, you have this thing like the Nagas where you've got some different type of being bringing in some other aspect of culture or a higher aspect of culture.
In Greece, there is a record from Herodotus, who was considered the first historian. We've talked about Herodotus multiple times on the show because there's very, very bizarre things in this man's account of the world at the time when he, was traveling around and trying to record everything. An account of the great serpent which defended the citadel of Athens. The Roman genius, I don't know if this is pronounced, it's Loci, so Loki, took the form of a serpent. A snake was kept and fed with milk during rites dedicated to Patrimpus, a Prussian god. The oracles of the ancient Greeks were said to have been the continuation of the tradition begun the worship of the Egyptian cobra goddess Wadjet.
Wow.
Loaded stuff there.
Yeah, that's really loaded. There's a festival on the Mekong River in Thailand, a Buddhist festival, where it's said that the Nagas shoots fireballs right out of the water. This takes it into the dragon realm. Is taking us down that path of dragons, right? That's so curious to me.
Yes, it is. And for those of you at home, the Mekong River that John just referenced is probably one of the strongest referenced regarding the Naga that is around right now. I mean, we've got this river reportedly is where at least one lives. It is unlikely that this thing exists, whatever it is, in this dimension, because the Nagas are known to kind of be some of these creatures that exist neither here nor there or both, or can go between these dimensions. And a lot of it's unclear where they really are. But excuse me if I'm going to butcher this, but Valayam Parai caves, which are about 4,000 years old. These are in the Javadi Hills. There are rock houses that still exist. They call huts. It's not really clear, but I believe these are atop a mountain, and they're very interesting. People think that old people of the Stone Age who were hunter-gatherers used to live in these caves. But if you look at them and you consider how high they are on these mountains, it would be like we're talking about 9 kilometers up to get to where these things are.
Or
And
are you implying that dragons were using them, flying in and out of them?
I don't know, something slithering potentially.
Right.
Whatever these things were, the claim is that these are obviously Stone Age huts where people lived, but it's very difficult to crouch into them. Praveen Mohan tells this story too, that the villagers in these areas that he talked to, they tell a very different story. They say that there were beings that came from the sky. They were short and they helped civilize humans. And after they vanished, at the bottom of these mountains, the local temples all have record of this, and they have like Nagas all over the temples. Interesting that these huts are there, and who would have lived in these huts? There is a place in northeast India called Nagaland.
Is that like an amusement park?
No, it's like a state. It's like a state called Nagaland.
A state?
And
Oh, okay, got it. I thought it was like Disneyland or something. Except for
no.
yeah,
I
it's got
mean,
Naga stuff.
yeah, no, this is an actual like part of the country called Nagaland, and they believe that they descended from the Nagas. It gets weirder, however, because if you start looking at a deeper culture here, there was in ancient Buddhist culture a bodhisattva who is considered the second most prominent figure in Buddhism, aside from Sakyamuni Buddha himself, who was 500 BC, right?
Right.
Nagarjuna is his name. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna. Naga is in the name. But one of the other significant things, too, that he ended up bringing in was the idea of tantric practices. Tantric practices being, more secret practices that are you could say sexual in orientation. Now, a lot of people are using these practices and they don't understand them at all. Right. That's not what we're talking about, right? Like this kind of sexy term, like, oh, tantric, whatever practices, like, and you have like
it's way beyond that. Way beyond that. Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a cultivation method that we have no way of understanding because we're not even in the state to understand those things, right? Nagarjuna, after renouncing his worldly life and being initiated into the Buddhist Sangha, he studied Mahayana texts on the Snow Mountain. He went to and obtained more important Mahayana scriptures from the palace of the Nagas under the sea, and won the mind and support of the king of the Satavahana dynasty. Sources also say that he settled in South India until his last days of his life, and he had a long life lasting several hundred years. What's strange is the palace of the Nagas under the sea did these things. Were they here on Earth for a long time, and then now they're hiding under the sea? And I think another strange thing is that the beings that Nagarjuna was communicating with, they called serpent-like or even fish-like. So you could easily mistake that if you saw it in the ocean or in the sea for what? A mermaid.
Right.
Which is
isn't that the case? A lot of these stories. What about the golden child, the golden boy, Eddie Murphy?
Did you watch that movie?
Yeah, I saw it. Oh man,
it's good, right?
It's a good movie. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But anyway, it's like the depiction of the Naga female is that head on the serpentine body, right, moving around. And that, is easily translated into a mermaid. Very interesting and weird that they are, the legends have them under the sea, which is another curiosity. So man, this is like literally like where mythology and reality collide. Like this is the crazy part of all this, because obviously, like in our current state of mind and reality, we don't perceive those things to be real. We don't think those things are real. But there was a certain time in history where that type of information or referencing to natural events stopped. It stopped, right? And there's a reason for that.
Are you liking this episode so far? We're not even halfway through. To watch the rest of this episode, click the link in the description to subscribe to the Metaphysical.tv.
You'll get access to all of our exclusive video podcast episodes on ancient history, mysterious legends, strange space phenomena, paranormal events, unbelievable cryptids, and amazing experiences you'll have to see to believe.
Your support means we can keep doing these deep dives. It also means we can design more merch and make more awesome products like our Metaphysical coffee, which you can get at the link in the description. Thanks so much for your support, and we hope you thought this episode was as out of this world as we did.